Hauser's with us, Channel 5 Eyewitness News, longtime political steadfast. You're here for one reason and one reason only.
I can only imagine what that is.
Does Jensen have a chance?
Oh, of course he has a chance. I mean, despite, we had a poll late August, early September that showed him down by 18 points in our KSTP Survey USA poll.
Yep.
Some people have been critical of that. I believe in late August, early September, that was an accurate reflection of where he was. It was the week he had made the Nazi comments comparing our COVID response to what the Nazis did in Germany. It was the week or the week after the inundation of ads had started from the Alliance for a Better Minnesota, hammering him on the abortion issue. They just released their 6th ad in that series today. And I think that was just a really bad week for him.
Yep.
And then our next poll a month later had him down by 10 points, which is much more manageable. It was a 4.6, I think, 4.2% margin of error, meaning the race could be as close as 4 or 5. And now you've got some other polls that are.
Are you aware of a new? Are you aware of a new Alpha News Trafalgar Group poll?
Yes.
That has Jensen leading Walz.
Yes, and
okay.
I will. I never like to denigrate anybody else's poll, but there's no question the Trafalgar Group has a Republican leaning.
Mm-hmm.
Now, having said that, generally pollsters who make their results known publicly and not just to a client, I generally give them a little more credibility because their credibility is on the line.
Right.
Who wants to put out a poll that
misleading.
Shows this number that I'm sure most Democrats will look at and say, oh, well, there's no way that could be right. There's every possibility it could be right. And the fact that they're releasing it publicly means they're putting their credibility on the line. If Walz goes on to win the race by 10 points, which is what our last poll said, but now again, we're going to have one more before Election Day, then their credibility would take a big hit. So what I'm saying here is, who knows?
Right.
Polling is so much more difficult. It's never been easy, which is why there's a margin for error in all of these things. But it's gotten increasingly difficult as people have given
Tom,
up
landlines. What is the typical accuracy of a final poll in a given election like this? Do you know offhand?
Well, I don't know that there is a typical. I can speak to KSTP Survey USA.
Sure.
They have been remarkably accurate over the years. And by accurate, I don't mean that in that they've predicted the outcome of the race, because that's not what polls do. Polls tell you where do things stand right now. But generally, you look at the last poll that is done closest to Election Day, and then you compare that to results to come up with what happened. To give you an example, in 2020, Joe Biden and Donald Trump, our last KSTP Survey USA poll, had Biden leading Trump by either 6 or 7 points. I forget exactly. The ultimate margin was Biden by 6 or 7 points. So it was right on. We've had that experience a lot with Survey USA. That's why they get an A rating from the 538 blog, which does a ranking of pollsters. They get an A.
What's the right number? What's the right number? Is it 1,000 people? What, in your opinion, what is the right number of people to poll to get a feel?
Well, think about that for a minute. When you're talking about a state of 5.5 million people, there's not a big difference between our polls that might have 600 to 700 respondents and another poll that might have 1,000 respondents. I mean, that number, that's a minuscule number. They might have a slightly smaller margin for error, but any of those that are statistically reliable, and we rely on our pollsters. They do this for a living. Survey USA is based out in New Jersey. They do polling all over the country, have a great track record, and they know the number that they're comfortable with.
Do you have Jensen and Walz this weekend on Sunday?
No. On our debate night, only Jensen. We are.
And when is that?
That will be Sunday night from 6 to 9. We will start with the Attorney General's.
Are they both? Will they both be there?
They will both be there.
Why will Walz not be there? Do you know?
Soccer
we
game?
have not been given a reason why he will not be there. We were told, early on that he wanted to do a statewide race and have as many people compare his positions to Scott Jensen's because he believes more people agree with his positions. And then when the invitation went out, not just from us, but also Almanac at Channel 2, I think Carol Levin made offers. I know Almanac would have been statewide. Ours would have been statewide. I'm not sure about CARES, but Hubbard has stations in all over the state, and it would have been a statewide debate. It will be a statewide interview now with Scott Jensen.
So paradoxically, it's called debate night, but only one guy will be there, which does not constitute a debate. So will you be questioning Jensen?
Yes, there will be me and two other panelists, Laura Lee, who is a reporter down at KAAL in Rochester, and Peter Callahan from MinPost, who covers the Capitol. He has an office down the hall from me at the state Capitol, very knowledgeable about what's going on. But we will have debates with the Attorney General and Secretary of State candidates. They have all agreed to show up. And I always give a lot of stock in candidates over the years who have been willing to debate anybody, anytime. Keith Ellison is one of those people. John Klein, the former congressman, who I'm sure you had on this show, he would debate anybody, anytime, because they thought it would. Dean Phillips is another one. They think it's their duty to give potential voters, a look into who the people are who are running.
Did you host the debate in Rochester?
No, that was done by KTTC down in Rochester. I did cover it. They did not have a live audience. We covered it, a live feed that we had of the debate.
Is Walz hiding?
You'd have to ask him. I don't. He did a public appearance.
We
today
tried
at
to
10
ask
o'clock.
him at the fair when he threatened to come on with us every day and never showed up.
Right.
Yeah, you would have to ask him what the strategy is, but I'm guessing there are political consultants who are telling him, you've heard the phrase Rose Garden strategy. When you've got a lead in the polls, don't do anything that might get in the way of cutting
you
into
mean
that
like
lead.
speak?
But wouldn't that get in the way? Not showing up for a debate like that of that size, that would be a bad thing to do. If you're ahead, you should just go debate.
We actually did a poll question about that after we realized we were having difficulty getting some people to agree to debates. Angie Craig is another one who's only agreed to one debate.
Wow.
But 85% of the people we polled said that debates are either somewhat or very important for candidates to participate in. 85%.
Wow.
Now, we didn't ask a follow-up, will it impact how you vote? But of all the things that you might factor in, if you're on the fence, you might go, well, this guy wouldn't even come and tell me where he stands.
One of the things I said the other day, Tom, was when we were reacting to the debate that was held out of Rochester, and Joe had asked aloud, well, why would he agree to that one and not, and I had said, well, Jensen pretty much has a lock on outstate Minnesota, and maybe Walz just says, well, I don't want to potentially lose any voters here within the metro where more residents of the state of Minnesota reside. And I just think this is obviously a strategy on his behalf.
Well, absolutely. And it's all conjecture about why, but we all know there's political consultants who are involved, who are telling him, what to do. He will do one more debate coming up on Friday, the 28th. So a week from today.
Where?
NPR at noon. I'm not sure yet whether there's a live audience for that or not. He has insisted on no live audiences
for
why. Many of these.
I mean, serious question. I wonder why. What the hell difference does it make?
I think in some cases, and I understand this somewhat, the audiences are not as civil as they once were. And I'm not
an
just,
NPR audience would be civil.
But I'm talking about both sides. Well, each side would have the ability to, you get 100 tickets and we get 100 tickets.
Right.
I even know this from going out and doing live broadcasts in places. People are not as respectful as they once were in these public venues.
Well, I understand it too. Look at Farm Fest. I mean, that turned into exactly what you're talking about. And I think that was until Rochester. Wasn't that the last time that those two had been together in a debate style format?
And that was 12 weeks ago. So we went 12 weeks, 3 months without another debate. We had one that could only be seen by a portion of the state, and there will not be another one. It's from our research, it's been at least 40 years since there has not been a gubernatorial debate in Minnesota on statewide television.
You're kidding.
No,
wow.
at least 40 years.
Wow.
Well, that's
And I know I've been here 30 years, and I know in my 30 years there's been at least one.
Was there
and
a reason?
sometimes
that blame has to fall to Walls. Jensen's available.
Jensen he wanted to debate once a week,
Yeah.
but that the challenger always wants to debate once a week.
Sure,
So,
sure.
but I don't mean to be in defense of anyone, but Walls is not the only one. Governor Walls is not the only one. This is happening across the country, Republicans and Democrats. If you're an incumbent, why give your opponent any oxygen if you've got a what you consider to be
really?
a sizable lead?
Interesting. So this is a strategy on both sides, is what you're saying, nationwide.
Yes,
Wow.
Here in Minnesota, it's been a little more pronounced. Well, frankly, all of our statewide office holders right now are Democrats. So that's why we're seeing the Democratic version of it here, because all of our statewide office holders are Democrats.
5.5 million people in Minnesota. That's almost, is that fewer or more meals than Feeding Our Future?
That's right up there.
That's a
Right up there.
That's a lot fewer meals.
That's
than
fewer
have-
meals than they claim.
Joe, I did love your column the other day about that and about, because it begged the question, the millions of meals. Remember, these are supposed to be meals for kids.
Yeah.
So out of the 5.5 million, I'm just shooting off the top of my head, maybe 1.5 million of them are kids,
Right.
maybe 1 million are kids. And so then the math becomes even more problematic on the number of meals that were allegedly being
It's a
served.
lot of food.
It's a lot
That's
of food.
I don't know where they kept it all.
And it's amazing. You've got me thinking, and of course I've been thinking along these lines for quite some time, but every office holder is a Democrat in this state. And
Every statewide office holder.
every
yes.
statewide office holder is a Democrat. And boy, the silence on the food fraud scandal was astonishing. Just
Yeah.
astonishing.
Yeah, and that's going to be one of the topics that we talk about in our debates because that does touch on the Attorney General's race. What could the Attorney General have done to stop this? And then, of course, we'll ask Jensen about it. But we know where Jensen stands on that issue. He
Mhm.
thinks the state fell down on the job and did
course
not
they did.
catch any of this.
Yeah, well, he's right. Jensen's right in that regard.
And so the difficult thing for us not really difficult, but we're going to do an interview, kind of like meet the press style. The three panelists will be asking Jensen questions, but it's not our job to be stand-ins for the governor. We're not going to say, well, here's where the governor stands. So
Right,
where do you
right.
stand? It's the governor's job to come up and represent
No,
himself.
bleep him.
Right.
If he's
Yeah.
not
Right.
there, you have no obligation.
So, but we'll ask Jensen just where he stands on various issues. It's not our job to say, here's where the governor stands, because that's his job.
Wait a minute. I got a great idea. Tom, I'm talking ratings bonanza.
Uh-oh.
Sitting in for Governor Walls, the mayor, Joe Souchere.
Yeah.
Huh?
No, I think
You'd have a 15 share.
if you do a cut out of Walls and you have the thing where the lips move a little bit, it's a really bad. What's your worst graded ad so far? I love you doing that too. I pay attention
I do
to every
too.
single one.
it has to be Angie Craig, because you're not an ad she runs that has any truth in it.
It was an ad in the Angie Craig race, but it was not run by her. Although after we gave the ad from, I believe, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee an F for saying that Tyler Kistner was on the record as saying he opposed abortion even in the cases of rape, incest, and to save the life of the mother. There is absolutely no record of him having said that
Right.
anywhere at any time. And if there were, guess what? It would be in every single one of those ads.
Right.
So we gave that an F, but that did not stop the Craig campaign from coming out with its own ad saying the same thing. And then another group aligned with her came out and said the same thing. Now I have noticed they've tempered the ad a little bit to say that now they're extrapolating things here. They say that Tyler Kistner thinks abortion law should be left up to the states.
It is.
Some states have decided to ban abortion, even in the case of rape, incest, and to protect the life of the mother. Therefore, Tyler Kistner must agree with those states' laws.
That's
That is
unbelievable.
a big stretch, but that is what they're trying to do. Every single race, even yesterday, I did a debate for At Issue that you can see this Sunday with the state auditor's race, and the state auditor, Julie Blaha, trying to make the case that abortion is on the ballot in the state auditor's race. Something I never thought I would hear, but I heard
That's
it
all.
yesterday.
That's all the Democrats have to run on.
It is in almost every single ad. It is remarkable how they have hitched their wagon to this one single issue.
Can Ryan Wilson win that auditor's race, do you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
In our polling, all three of the other statewide races, other than governor, are well within the margin of error. Those are all, a couple of them are toss-ups.
I don't want a state auditor focused on abortion. I want a state auditor focused on numbers.
Then you don't want Kim Crockett. She's dangerous.
Well, I wondered who did the voiceover on that. The reason they're doing it, it's not, well, frankly, the economy and crime are not issues right now that work in favor of Democrats.
You don't say.
That's why you don't see that in the ads. But the abortion issue is all about driving turnout. Whether your race has anything to do with abortion or not, you got to turn people out. So every race, even the auditor's race, they're bringing
because you're begging for those one issue voters that are going to turn out, right? Because
that's what they're banking on,
Yeah.
and it's a high risk, possibly high reward strategy, but we're not going to know until November 9th.
Right.
That's the day after the election.
Thank
by the
you.
way.
I
do know election day.
I think that's a Wednesday.
Yeah.
What do you envision? Last question. What do you envision for the nation on November 9th?
I think there is going to be a Republican wave. Maybe not as big as it would have been absent the Roe versus Wade decision.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately when a voter either mails their ballot in or they go into the election place, they're thinking of things that impact them every day. And in this case, it's the economy and the fear that they're going to get carjacked.
Right.
They're not thinking about, boy, what if a family member of mine needs an abortion? Now that could happen to any woman, but it's not something that is impacting people every single day like crime and the economy does. That's why I think Republicans are going to have a pretty good day on election day, but I think it might be blunted a little bit by the abortion issue.
All right. Sunday night, you can catch Jensen with Tom Hauser.
Yeah, 6 to 9. You'll get all three of those races from 6 to 9 on KSTP.
And just to clarify, you're not taking votes for stand-in. So if someone emails you to stand in for governor, that's not an option, correct?
It might be for my own amusement, but no.
Gotcha.
And by the way, our invitation to Governor Walz remains open right up until the time.
Just like ours did at the fair.
Yeah, so if he wants to make a last-minute decision, we would.
So it'll be like when Rook and I organize a happy hour and we always invite Joe, and he says, I'm not coming. We're just still going to look at the door. Maybe hopefully he's going to walk in.
That squeaky door
you
opens.
Look to see if the doorway is darkened by his shadow, but it sounds like it doesn't happen.
Right.
Thanks, Tom.
And don't forget about ad issue on Sunday morning.
Sunday morning at 10 o'clock.
Got it. Thank you.